At this stage, I want to say to everybody that's joined us today, thank you and welcome. We're just going through our introductions. We did a couple of basic introductions before we started the recording. And I'm going to go to Natalie before I introduce myself. But since Natalie, Penny, will know the team or the basic team, then I'll introduce myself. Natalie, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Natalie and I'm the CRM manager. So I'm usually your first point of contact on your journey to becoming a licensee. If there's any questions that you have, any administrative needs, you just pop me a message and I can help you out. So you'll hear a little bit more from me throughout the session in terms of what you might require, and you'll get my WhatsApp number and email as well, so you can chat to me directly. Thanks for being here.
Great. Thanks, Natalie. And now over to Penny.
Hi, everybody. My name is Penny. I am Ken's partner and co-founder of INTRA-SAFE, and I'm more on the finance side and the delivery side. I also project manage the e-learning platform, as well as the new Qcto accreditation do-it-yourself workshops and Google Drive support. And yes, look forward to being of support to you and adding massive value to your health and safety vision going forward. Back to Ken.
Excellent, Penny. Thank you so much. Great. I see we've got a couple of extra people. Gumani has joined us. Thank you so much, Gumani. We'll be chatting to you afterwards. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a presentation using a PowerPoint so that you can get as clear a picture as possible. I'm going to record it. I'll upload that recording to YouTube this evening. And then Natalie will share the URL with everybody so you can watch it. Maybe you have a partner or a colleague or somebody, or maybe you just like to watch it again. And that's the intention of it, so that it's like a bit of a research tool. I'm going to jump straight into the presentation and just introduce myself. We were talking to John Brown, and I have known each other for quite some time when we used to live in Cape Town. And my health and safety days started literally at a national key point. Became the safety manager, became a security manager, then the safety manager. Then I worked for NOSA for 5 years. And then I started a company called Intra-Train, which was a training company. And for 7 years, I ran training courses, Cape Town, Durban, Joburg, wherever opportunity arose. We grew the business to about 20 people. And there was admin staff and printing staff and salespeople and lecturers and stuff like that. Then exited the health and safety world for a short while, but decided to come back and publish occupational health and safety training material. And I think, John, that's one of the places that you and I made contact with some of the training material that we had. And the objective is to help other health and safety trainers to get up and running as quickly as possible, both in terms of the subject matter, that's health, safety, bio, and so forth, but also in terms of guidance or hints and tips with regards running a business. I had no idea how to run a business when I started my training company. It literally was like a hit and miss game. No one in my family had ever run a business, so I didn't know, didn't have anybody that I could lean on or didn't have any role model. But we realized that so many other people in exactly the same position. John mentioned briefly the confusion around Qcto and SETA and NQF and SAQA. There is a lot of misinformation out in the marketplace. One of our roles is to make it as clear as possible, but at the same time to admit we don't know it all. Because I don't think Qcto actually know it all. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to do a quick presentation and I'm going to get into it. Natalie, can you tell me if you can see the screen?
Yes, I can.
Great. Okay, let's just get that up and running. I'm going to get rid of the images here. There we go. Okay, so you saw the invitation and came out via maybe an email, or maybe you got a WhatsApp, or maybe you got a Facebook message, and you saw that what we're saying is we'll help you become a health and safety trainer, and we'll teach you how to do your own Qcto accreditation. Now, that's quite an interesting process. It's something that we've just recently started, and I'll talk you through each one of these processes. Would like to ask that you register with Natalie. That's her number, 082 499 6911, 082 499 6911. And the reason for that is that there's a lot of material that we'd like to send you. And we'll be talking that through. If you want to, just take a photograph of the screen so you've got her number, and you could just send her a message saying, hello, I have now joined the meeting. So I think that that's enough. We'll come back to you in a moment. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so what we did is we said, we'd like to introduce you to and invite you to consider becoming a health and safety training licensee. And we'd be able to provide you with some of our experience, and certainly a fair amount of support, which we'll talk about. Very important for me to mention this, that I'm not an attorney, and I don't want you to regard this as legal advice, especially when we come to things like the Occupational Health and Safety Act and regulations. If you do need an attorney and you do need legal advice, you may, as a member of Saiosh, the South African Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, you may in fact find yourself in a situation where you can get the advice of the Saiosh advocate, a man by the name of Reynard Luch. Saiosh has a platform and you can ask questions on that platform and Reynard will answer them, or somebody will answer them for you. Okay, so that's important. Now, talking legislation, we know in South Africa there are two primary pieces of legislation, Mines Health and Safety Act and the Occupational Health and Safety Act. We'll call that the OSA. And we know that in the Mines Health and Safety Act and the OSA that there is reference to the employer's responsibility to train their people. In the OSA, very specifically, it uses three words: inform, instruct, train, and supervise. I'll come back to those three words, but just consider those three words. There are three different things, and I often challenge people and I say, now, if you were asked by an inspector from the Department of Employment and Labour to prove who you have informed in this month or this quarter or this year, who you have instructed, and who you have trained. So there's almost definitions, there are definitions for those three words, but let's consider them for a moment. We also know that in the training space, there's two categories of training that we are directly involved in. One is legal compliance. That's when the act or the regulations say you must train your people. We'll unpack that in a bit. And then, of course, the other one is the SACWA, SETA, NQF, Qcto, this thing where we talk about accreditation, and we refer to that as credit bearing. Excuse me. Credit bearing training is that it follows a procedure that is set down by SACWA. The big difference between these two categories is that legal compliance means if you don't comply, you could be fined or even imprisoned if you were convicted. Whereas credit bearing training, there's no such thing. If you don't do it, fine. Nobody's going to take you to court. Now, it might not be something that your employer or your client wants you to do. We'll talk about that, but that is important. There's actually a third category, we'll call it life skills. And life skills is where you provide information, instruction, and training to non-employees. But at this stage, we're talking about the workplace training. So that's our recommendation, excuse me, to become an INTRA-Health and Safety Training licensee. Penny and I have been doing this for almost 12 years now and have assisted literally hundreds of people to set themselves up either as in-house trainers within their own organizations or alternatively as commercially orientated trainers that go to clients and run courses there. We know for a while now that people have been saying, is your training accredited? And accreditation has become a big issue in the marketplace. I do want to say this at this stage, that often people don't understand what accreditation is. They don't understand how to get it. And they confuse words like certification and registration and verification and accreditation. Now, they get these words confused, and there's about 8 different words that you can get confused about. I saw somebody that was selling a product, a pharmaceutical product that was accredited. I go, by whom? Who does that? But in the health and safety training game, it's a SACWA, South African Qualification Authority accreditation. To look at the law itself, probably the most important section in the Act, particularly around health and safety training, is Section 8. These are the duties of the employer. And it says the following. Section 8 says that the employer shall establish the hazards attached to the work, article, substance, produced, processed, used, handled, stored, transport, or any plant or machinery used. So immediately we see step number 1, the employer must identify the hazard. Step number 2, the employer shall establish the precautionary measures to be taken. And then step number 3, the employer shall make sure that the employee has been informed, instructed, trained, and supervised. So look at those 3 steps there. Now, quite simply, if you were to write a training program, if you, not us, if you were to write a training program, the first thing that you'd need to do is know what the dangers, hazards, and risks are. I'm sure that makes sense. Because then what's the point of just attending a training program that is not risk specific? Then, of course, once the employer has identified these things, they must write precautionary measures. And those precautionary measures should be written into the training. Otherwise, they're not really doing what the law requires. And then the last one is that they must go out there and they must do information, instruction, training, and supervision. We'll break it down yet further. Now, section 13 is the employer's duty to inform the employee. And I just want to say this from a marketing point of view. If you're looking at getting into the marketplace and running training programs, look at the size of that market. It says every employee. You know, there's about 16 million people that are affected by or have to comply with the Occupational Health and Safety Act. That's 16 million people. In the mining industry, it's about 1 million people. So that's a huge market. Then it also talks in section 13 as to what kind of information, instruction, and training is provided. You must provide it so that the employee can converse, in other words, discuss and chat about. So now this is something that's really important. And then, of course, we spoke about identifying the precautions and writing those precautions into the training. And then, of course, the employer must ensure that the precautions are taken. Okay, so at the outset, what we can say is every single employer must focus on legal compliance. They have to comply with the law. There's no getting away from it. And the legislation is the foundation for all our training when it comes to whether it's irrespective of whether it's first aid or firefighting, whether it is IRO, investigation, or any of these courses. We'll talk about those. So bear this in mind, big focus, irrespective of Qcto, irrespective of SETA, the employer must still comply with the law. Okay, now, when it comes to things like information, there are hundreds of topics where you could possibly, either as a provider, provide information on these topics, or as an employee working for an organization, provide information on these topics. These topics have been listed in the document. I'll happily ask, well, you can ask Natalie to send it to you so that you can take a look at all these topics. Some of them are duplications, so don't worry, but there must be about 160 topics over there that you would need to provide your employees if it's relevant. That's part of the needs analysis or the IRA, the hazard identification and risk assessment. Now, people often ask me the question, yeah, but am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to do training? Because I heard, they say, I heard that all health and safety training must be accredited. And my respectful response is, who told you that? Who told you that? Is it in the law? Is it in the government gazette? Where did they come up with this information that all health and safety training must be accredited? That's not true at all. And in fact, it's quite contrary to the Constitution of South Africa. Okay, so I wrote this document called Your Right to Provide Health and Safety Training. And the answer to this question, am I? The answer is yes and no. Now, the Afrikaans have a nice saying, ja, nee, yes and no. What do you mean? Well, for almost all of those 160 topics, yes, you can. Nothing's stopping you from doing it. No, you can't when it comes to legislated training, where we talk specifically about a regulation that says something. I'll share that with you. Okay. We also know for a long time, previously it was all dealt with by the Department of Employment and Labor, or Manpower those years. Now, that was then replaced by SETA, the Sectoral Educational Training Authorities, and they provided the guidance and they provided sort of structure, and they had things called unit standards. And they developed over the years, over a decade or so, almost 11,000 or maybe slightly more than 11,000 unit standards. But here's the reality, and this is where the rubber hits the road. And this is a lot of people are confused at this stage. All of those unit standards have now expired. Some of the unit standards, if you are currently an accredited provider, will continue to the end of June 2024. But all 11,000 plus unit standards have expired. And we also discovered SETA themselves have stopped accrediting. So that's a very important thing. I hear it often. People say, yeah, but I'm SETA accredited. I want to say this with love and respect. I'm sorry for you, but you're going to have to dump your SETA accreditation and you're going to have to become Qcto accredited. Because SETA is not going to do accreditation and the unit standards aren't going to work. However, and let me say however with a louder voice, there are petitions out there asking the minister to delay all of this. And there's a possibility, a remote possibility, that we might see that the minister turns around, minister being the Minister of Higher Education, and they might turn around and they say, right, we're just going to delay this for another, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years. We don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. So having said that, where do we go? Well, we're going to go to the Qcto. And this is the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations. And in our training sessions, we often find people misunderstanding what it is that accredited companies need to do. So if you think of the term Quality Council, you understand those terms, trades and occupation. Now, in the past, we had trade schools. And what the Qcto is endeavoring to do, and Department of Higher Education is trying to do, is that they're trying to create colleges. And if you become an accredited training provider, they're going to look at you as if you were a multi-person, multi-branch, multi-office college, so that they can address trades and occupations, because we know that there's this radical shortage of skilled labor in South Africa. Now, they've got a thing that I think you're probably familiar with by now, called a qualification. Now, the qualification is, in a way, a more robust senior qualification as opposed to a unit standard. Then they've got junior qualifications. I'm calling them junior because they speak of part qualifications, and they also speak of skills programs. So of the 11,400 plus, currently it's about 380 qualifications and only about 180 skills programs, of which only 7 are health and safety oriented. You go, what? Yep, only 7. I might be wrong. They might have published a couple more in the meantime. I haven't seen. And please don't quote me when I'm saying 7. It could be 8 or could be 9. But it is a challenge. Now, the question is, what and where must I be accredited? Well, you must be accredited so that you can present training to ensure that the employee or the learner becomes a competent person. That's another very important phrase to note. So you remember information, instruction, and training. Now remember competent person. And if you read that, you'll see that these come up in regulation, not in the act itself, but it's in a regulation. And it is defined in the regulation as a competent person. And it says there that this person must have a qualification in terms of the National Qualifications Framework. So I say we've got 7 or 8. Here they are. First 2 regulations, those are the lead and physical agents regulations, which is still in draft format. Then the commercial diving regulation, asbestos abatement, major hazard installations, hazardous biological agents, ergonomic risk assessor in terms of the ergonomics regulation. Then first aid. Of course, we've also got lifting machinery, and we've got fall protection under the construction regulation. Now, the only one that we have a qualification, part qualification, or in this instance, a skills program, is first aid. None of the others have been written, including working at heights. We've been following the discussion around this very topic, and it hasn't happened yet. But what about the other 100 and plenty topics? Well, currently they're working on about 20 that we know of, hopefully more, and hopefully we'll see this qualification curriculum being published shortly. And shortly in this instance might be months. Shortly for first aid was 17 months before they actually published the curriculum. Crazy, but that's the way it is. Now, this is not to say that it's no good. They're just slow off the mark. And we need to make sure that you and I, especially if you want to be a commercial health and safety training provider, that you know what the scenario is so that you can prepare and run your training programs accordingly. Okay. I have seen a couple of people have registered or just come into the webinar. Please, would you just very briefly WhatsApp your name and email address to that number, 082-920. Oh, my apologies, I was going to give you my number. That's Freudian. 082-499-6911. 082-499-6911. And the reason for that is that we've got a gift of a book, my book, The 1 Minute Safety Manager, if you'd like that. You can ask Natalie for a copy of that, and it's an ebook, together with various other documents. Okay, so now let's get straight into the presentation itself. The presentation, as I said, started off by inviting you to become an INTRA Health and Safety Training licensee. And what does that mean? It means that we're going to prepare you for business. You can run your own health and safety training advisory business or consultancy or whatever you want to call it, and we'll teach you how to do Qcto accreditation. A little bit more information on that. Penny's going to talk about that in a short while. But what you will be receiving, if you've not received it yet, is a document called the Prospectus. So pretty much everything I say to you today will be in the Prospectus, and it covers things like features and benefits and rights and products and services And of course, the fees. There are fees involved here, and Natalie will talk about that in a short while. Okay, so what we did is we put together a business model, and you can call it a license, as we've done, or a franchise, as other people may refer to it. And it comprises of these various components. And this is what you get when you become a licensee. I'm going to talk each one through with you very briefly so that you have a better understanding of how it works. I'm going to ask Natalie just to quickly talk about the license options, and there are a couple of them, and this is quite important. So I want to say, as she's getting ready, we don't call it a franchise because in terms of the Consumer Protection Act, there is a category franchise and another category called license. And that's what we've done here. So Natalie, over to you.
Thanks, Dad. So we have two different license options. One is the single branch, where, as mentioned, you can learn how to apply for your own Qcto accreditation. It includes all the training material. We've got 18+ legal compliance, 3+ Qcto skills programs, and over 50 SAQA customizable training materials. These all include updates, and there's the licensee orientation session, which takes place once a month. There are recordings available. It also includes an online marketing setup to get you going with marketing your business. And it also has our e-learning LMS that you're able to make use of if you have clients who want to do learning online. Then the other license is for multi-branches. So this would be like your Parmalat, your Virgin Active, corporate companies as such. And this allows them to have the copyright to the facilitated material. And if you'd like to just start small, we also offer our training material sold individually. So you can build your risk-specific resource library, and we're happy to deduct whatever you spend up to 50% on the upfront fee on any training material that you've previously purchased beforehand.
Great. Natalie will be able to answer more questions for you at a later stage. I just want to say as well that if you want a one-on-one Zoom call with the three of us, please let us know. We'll gladly set it up and you can chat to Natalie and she'll show you where to make the booking. Okay, let's get straight into it. So we spoke about the business model and we've spoke about the prospectus. Please get it. Now, what I'm going to suggest you do is get it printed. Grab a highlighter and go through it with literally fine-tooth comb. Also, you might want to give it to your accountant or your attorney, have them read it so that they can concur with you whether this is a good decision or not. And we strongly urge you to make sure that you know what you're doing because it is an agreement. So having said that, then the next portion is the orientation session that Natalie mentioned. So to bring you up to date, we have regular webinars. And one of the webinars that we have is a Saturday orientation session. Now, last week, we had an orientation session, but it was taken not so much business side, which is finance, admin, legal, marketing, advertising, things of that nature. It was really all about Qcto and what's happening in that portion of the market. So it was a very useful orientation session for those people that had not caught up with the information. And we also introduced some of the new training material that we're currently about to. You get an operations manual, and in the operations manual, there's hints and tips and guidelines, things that we've learned over the years. And both Penny and I have been in small business for over 35 years. So there are a couple of lessons that we share with you. Then we have a 2-day Train the Trainer program. Penny's going to just quickly give you the dates of the Train the Trainer program, Cape Town and Joburg. And we're going to be coming back to Johannesburg shortly to run that program. Over to you, Penny.
Thanks, Ken. So coming up in Johannesburg now, we still have a few places available. And this is going to be at the City Lodge right next door to the Mall of Africa, so more towards the Centurion side of town. And that's on the 6th and the 7th of June. So it's 2 full days. The price would include your catering. If you're a licensee, there's a discounted rate of 1950 per licensee. If you're a non-licensee, it's 4950 plus VAT for the 2 days. So that's coming up in Johannesburg. I've got 1 or 2 seats still remaining. I've got a limited number of seats available in the class so that we can keep it manageable. And the next one is coming up in Cape Town in August. And that's going to be at the Cape Town Yacht Club. And that's on the 14th and 15th of August. Same prices apply. And also limited number of learners are allowed to be there, but we're looking forward, hopefully, to seeing you. Thanks, and back to Ken.
Thank you, Penny. Now, that's a fun presentation, but it's also going to be very challenging in as much as I believe that so many health and safety training providers are they're average when it comes to group communications or presentations. So it is one of the areas that we'll be talking about and focusing on in the 2-day session, is how to get your message across in such a way that it's fun and exciting and memorable and so forth. Included in that is hints and tips from a information transfer point of view, how to structure your own presentations, how to customize the training material that we provide you, and so forth. So see if you can join us. It'll be really, really good. Okay, back to Natalie. She's going to be talking about the online marketing setup.
Thanks. So what's included is an online marketing setup, which is basically comprises of a couple of platforms that we feel it's important to have a presence on. And this is from a discoverability point of view, what we call search engine optimization. It just means that you are able to be found, and it gives you a certain level of credibility as well. Just as an example, if you were to type your name into Google, one of the first things that are going to come up in the search results is your Facebook profile or a LinkedIn profile. So just by merely having a presence on those platforms, it already helps you. And we do a consulting session as well, an orientation where I take you through the setup that I've done and answer any questions that you might have. I also give you a checklist so that you know where to kind of follow the journey in terms of getting going with your digital marketing journey, what important components you should focus on, what are some of the things that you can just start to implement to really make sure that you are starting to get those leads in, and also creating some brand awareness about your business. So there's a couple of things that are mixed in there, and it's obviously really important. You know, if you're not marketing, you're not getting business. So this is a crucial part of the journey of your training business.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that I've learned as a result of having a millennial in our home is that they know stuff we don't know, and they can do stuff we can't do. And in this instance, it's not just a matter of that a millennial is going to show you how to do it. Natalie has a bachelor's degree in media from University of Cape Town. She's worked for various advertising agencies. She's helped probably, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 dozen licensees set themselves up so that their online marketing setup is functioning. And then at least it's a place that you can go to and ask somebody's advice who knows what she's talking about. And I'm not suggesting that your daughter or son or your nephew or niece doesn't know this. I am suggesting that if you want to do it properly. Simple as that. So give you huge, huge advice and information. Okay, over to Penny. She's going to be talking about the e-learning platform, how it works, and some of the benefits, and you'll find more information in our product catalog, which we'll be talking about. Over to you, Penny.
Thanks, Ken. So everyone is familiar with e-learning nowadays after COVID-19 and just how effective it is. And it's an incredible asset for our licensees, especially if you're a fairly small company and don't yet have the resources to put your own e-learning platform together. Then we have a 50% profit share solution, which is working extremely well. You maintain your relationship with your client, you bill your client, but Intra only charges you $275 per learner per course, and you would typically charge your client probably $650 per learner per course. You are really active only in 2 main areas. Number one, obviously dealing with your client and setting up your data registration form with us, and then introducing the methodology to those learners. And then just following up on the reporting, you can order your reports weekly or monthly as you need, and making sure that your learners have actually logged in, etc. And then, you know, at the end, just compiling and copies of their certificates of completion. So it's a great self-driving mechanism. It's incredibly useful for tick boxing all your legal compliance requirements for your clients, especially where you have clients who have one or two that they want to put on different courses around the country. So this really works from a geographical point of view as well. And we have licensees that have been adding an extra not quite 50, but 5, 10 or 15 or 20,000 rands worth of income per month by making use of this. And as your resources improve and you would like to control your own payment gateway, etc., then there is that opportunity there for you as well. We have a plug and play solution for you so that you'd be able to take over the 15 courses immediately and work together with our partner company to set up your own platform. So excellent addition. If you complete all 15 courses, and what we do is with each of our licensees, we give you 2 delegates for free to complete all 15 courses. You get a special certificate called the HASMAN, and this is also proving like another great point of credibility that you can add to your website, etc. And we'll be adding to the HASMAN every year as we're adding different courses, etc., to the e-learning platform. Very, very popular with Qcto as well. They do like to see that you're making use of e-learning for your learners, because it all adds to accessibility for learners to catch up to speed very quickly. Thanks, and back to Ken.
Right, so Penny's spoken about the e-learning platform, more information in Prospectus. Now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the training material. One of the reasons that we suggest that becoming a licensee is very, very useful. We've got a lot of training material that will transfer to you. You'll be able to take it, modify it, customize it, update it, do what you need to do to it, meet the client's needs. Remember, we've spoken about risk specific, and we have almost 18 programs, there we go, that cover a wide range of health and safety topics, with more to come. And these are pure legal compliance training programs. These legal compliance training programs are there for you to use so that you can go to your client, no approval required, no verification, no accreditation. You can do these as legal compliance programs. Wow, this is also a nice money spinner. And we're finding that more and more people are saying, we don't want to go down the route of accreditation and or any of the administrative stuff that goes with the unit standard line or curriculum and qualification route. There's a lot of administration there. They just want legal compliance. They want to comply with the law. So, okay, we'll talk more about that. Here's an example. We have a product called the Inductor, which is a really good money spender. This is one of the products that I use to fund my business right in the beginning. The induction program comes with all these documents, such as guides and visuals and assessments and support material, and it is customizable, but it also comes with about 12 short video clips and 1 long video of about 20 minutes that's induction related. And you could literally orientate yourself in the use of this material, and then within a week or so, you could be generating income by just using induction. And we know that induction is critical and has to take place everywhere. So speaking as an entrepreneur, I'm forever looking at ways that you can make money, we can make money. And Penny's mentioned the e-learning, and now I'm mentioning the Inductor. Easy way to get up and running. I will give you a lot more detail on that in the orientation session when you become a licensee. I'll tell you exactly how I set up our company and funded our company using this specific product. Okay, so we're talking about focusing on legal compliance, legal compliance, legal compliance. Let's move on a little bit. Now, we also know that we have all the training material that was developed by and through SAQA, and these were unit standards. Now, while the actual unit standard has expired, that's the number and the title has expired, not the content. The content is as good as ever. You can run these programs, and you'll see in the catalog that there are about 50 programs that you can run. And we'll be adding to these as well as the Qcto curriculum come out. So bearing in mind, you can set that up. You can do a needs analysis to your client's premises and or within your own organization, and then start providing training on an ongoing basis. I mentioned the Qcto qualifications, and I said that it's very limited. There's about 7 of them. I'm going to touch on them now. And that's also training material that we'll provide to you. And they include these topics. So the first one, there's project management. Now, that's not a typical health and safety product. But for those organizations that are going through shutdown, that is a very, very useful product, actually, or product, useful course to run for people that are going to be going through the shutdown. They will understand it and know it. Now, there's quite a lot to teach you. For one, you'll see that it doesn't have a unit standard name as a code. Then it's got a title. Then the NQF level, which has not really changed much. Then the credits, and then the notional hours. So have a look at the credits. And if you know anything about notional hours, you'll know that for every credit, you need to spend 10 notional hours. So a 240 credit program is actually 2,400 notional hours. Now, that's not classroom training, so don't get too excited about that. But of the 2,400 hours, 1/3 is meant for classroom training. We'll explain a lot more about that. Then you can see that there's a health and safety officer, health and safety assistant, and then 2 new programs called the safety inspector and the safety practitioner. So bearing in mind that we have a, I think our artist has got this wrong. Please forgive me. The color coding is wrong. We just need to get that right. So it's the first 2, occupational health and safety officer and safety assistant, that are the new one. So pardon that. I'll fix it in a moment. Then the one in yellow there is part of a qualification, which is emergency first aid responder. There's a basic, there's an intermediate, and the advanced. And as of Monday next week, the basic training material will be part of this package. You'll receive it. You don't pay extra for it. It's all part of the package. In a way, it's free. You get that training material for free, and we'll orientate you. We'll work through it. And the developer of the training material will spend a couple of hours with you. We've already got a number of videos that we've created so that you understand how the Qcto wants you to run the programs, the methodology is, and things of that nature. So then we'll follow that with the intermediate and the advanced. But I want to stop here for a second and just say, if it's confusing, and I know, John, you there, one of the crazy things is that to run the advanced course, which used to be the level 3 course, you have to be registered with the Health Professional Council of South Africa. And we don't anticipate there's going to be a lot of people being able to do that, because who's going to go back and get the qualification as a basic ambulance assistant or a paramedic? So focus your attention around the basic program. That's the workplace, or it's supposed to be the workplace first aid course. You'll see that underneath that, we've got about 20 health and welfare SETA skills programs are being developed. There are other health and welfare SETA programs that we have no control over at this stage or influence. And of course, there's lots and lots, I told you about 120, 160 other courses that will need to be developed as well. So Penny and I have had the privilege of actually working on a Qcto HW SETA work group on the development of some of these curriculum, and we have an insight into what's coming. So, sure, there we go. My apologies for the stuff in red. I got that wrong. They got that. Now, what do you get? For instance, we call the basic emergency first aid responder, BFAR. We refer to it as BFAR for, we need an acronym. It's a hang of a mouthful there. So you'll receive the facilitator guide, learner guide, you'll receive the practical skills, and you'll receive the learner workbook. Together with that, you'll receive a pack of 160 odd, 170 odd PowerPoint, so that you now have a comprehensive package that you can get up and running as quickly as possible. And if you happen to have, like one of our participants today, you happen to have a background in first aid, John, you'll be able to modify, customize it, adapt it, and we provide you all this material in Word for Windows and in PowerPoint. So, and we invite you to customize it and update it if necessary. So, a lot to be said around that. Then, interestingly enough, we also provide you with a little bit of ISO awareness training material. Now, I'm sure many, many people are oblivious to the fact that we're now starting to see ISO mentioned in the OSA, Occupational Health and Safety. And we've seen it more recently where they quote 2 ISO standards. That's 9001 and 14001. Never before have we seen ISO mentioned in the legislation. But to make sure that you are able to catch up on the protocols and the activities in the ISO world, you will receive a 1-day training session with a freelance facilitator on ISO. And then once you've completed the basic evaluation, she'll provide you with the training material as well, or information material. So, sure. Right, let's move straight on. Now, I'm going to ask Penny to talk about this aspect over here. It's the DIY accreditation Accredi Kit. And Penny has put together this thing called an Accredi Kit specifically to shortcut the process of getting your accreditation. Previously, we used to suggest that you use a accreditation specialist, but they have become exceedingly expensive. And lastly, we also discovered that the Qcto wants every single course, apparently, don't quote me on this, every single individual course must be accredited individually, which means it becomes almost untenable in terms of cost. So over to you, Penny. Okay, just waiting for Penny to come online.
Great, thank you so much, Ken. Sorry, I was busy trying to find the unmute button. Okay, so we're hugely excited about this and we're getting some excellent results. And I think just taking the pain and the frustration out of the whole Qcto accreditation process. The one thing that I can report back on is that the Qcto systems are really good. It's easy to work with. And what we've done with our workshops, when we've got a series of 6 sessions that we run on a Friday morning from 7 a.m. until 9 a.m. So it doesn't interfere too much with your working day, doesn't interfere with your weekend. And we get through an incredible amount of information in each of these sessions. But we cover every aspect of the accreditation journey, from putting all your documents together to how to handle your site visit, and even eventually how to handle the Department of Employment and Labour approval process as well. We make use of our licensees that have already done their own Qcto accreditation, so they're already experienced. They know some of the tips and tricks. Some of the suggestions that they have are really excellent, and we've included all of their input together in our Google Drive support. So you get a special Google Drive access, which has all of the templates that you would need, including a Qcto orientated QMS and business plan, and every possible checklist that you can go through. And even if you're not really OCD orientated, maybe there's somebody within your organization who just loves to dot the I's and cross the T's. I know I'm that person normally in our organization. And, you know, this is just a way of saving you an incredible amount of time and an incredible amount of money. So one of the things that really concerned Ken and myself when we were looking at the reality of all of these new health and safety skills programs coming through the Qcto is each and every time you need to get accredited, it's additional costs, additional costs, additional costs. So we really wanted to take that off your shoulders so that you could also select which of these skills programs you want to focus on and make those your priority, because that is the essence of your business. Yeah, so going very well. We've had lots of success in coming through the accreditation process already with Qcto. And as I say, going forward, as you'll be dealing more and more with the Qcto, we'll be making sure that you have everything that you need. Thanks, and back to Ken.
Great. Okay, so Penny said, saving your time, saving your money, putting you first. It sounds like a Nashua advert. But essentially, there are costs involved. But I want to say this before Natalie talks through the costs. You do know that all expenses that were incurred or are incurred as you set up your own training company, your business, are tax deductible. Very, very important that you know that. And Penny's nickname is Money Penny, like James Bond character, and she'll be able to give you a little bit of information regarding taxation so that you take all the expenses and you claim them at the end of the tax. Okay, so Natalie, over to you.
Thanks. So the once-off upfront fee for the single branch INTRA-license is 45,500, excluding VAT. And we do currently have a birthday special that we're running for last couple of days, which will take 10% off the 45,500. So if you are keen, our offer expires on the 12th of May. But pop me a message if you are very, very keen to get going, and we can always give you a few more days if needed. The monthly subscription on that is 1,500 ex VAT. We do require a stock order. It's a 5-year license, and we do also offer a single payment for a percentage deduction. And then the individual training material that sells for $2,995. That's inclusive of that. And you can purchase that directly off our website. I'll pop the URL in the chat box. Or if you would prefer receiving an invoice, you can just message me and I can put that together for you.
Great. Okay, so you have an insight into how much it's going to cost, and then you've heard we've spoken about the e-learning program that you can generate income from so that you can pay it back, you can recoup your investment, and we also spoke about the inductor. But if you think about it, there are dozens of other, maybe a dozen, I'm exaggerating, other ways that you can generate income in the meantime without accreditation by providing legal compliance training. And I'll give you 2 ideas, just very simply. We'll talk these through on our Saturday orientation session. One of which is that you could become a public speaker and you can speak on the topic of occupational health and safety, and you could be paid for it. Now, this is a way that I generated income over years, and I've spoken at so many health and safety conferences, really national as well as international conferences, and get paid for it. And the other way that you can generate income, which is simple, and I've just seen on my phone that somebody said, Ken, do you have somebody in Cape Town that can do first aid training? So she's not accredited, but she wants somebody to do the training. So she would then become the agent of the training provider in Cape Town. And we have licensees literally that range from Cape Town to Cairo, and you can then negotiate with them and generate income by merely passing on the detail. We don't take any of that income. That's all between you and them. Okay, so Natalie spoke about the stop order. Penny, can you just quickly elucidate on that, please?
Sure, yes. So what we did in the last 2 years is we started to move across to a stop order or scheduled payment system for our monthly license fees. And this is working really well. So we ask you to set up your own arrangement with your own bank and just make sure that the payment would come to us by the 28th of each month. Our invoices typically go out on the 25th of each month. And then if your payment can come to us by the 28th of each month. And as long as you can prove that you have a stop order or a scheduled payment in place, then we actually, in our next financial year, we're actually going to keep our monthly management fee, license fee exactly the same. Otherwise, it would go up by 10%. So this also helps you in terms of your cost saving over the year. You can also arrange to pay for a full year or 6 months at a time in advance. And for that, we give you an additional 10% discount. So quite a lot of our licensees that are a little bit bigger and have more resources, they opt for that option. And it remains outstanding value because you get way, way, way more than what you're paying in a monthly license fee in terms of additional brand new products and training materials every year. So huge value. And back to Ken.
Great. Okay, so now you have an understanding of how the basic business model works, the franchise, if you like, the license as we speak of it. But we also don't just dump you. We don't just say, well, that's it. Thank you very much. Goodbye. What we do in the background is we do a lot of research, an enormous amount of research. And more recently, it has been just time consuming, hours and hours and hours of trying to find out where we're going with Qcto and SETA. And we've spoken to the Department of Employment and Labor, had one of their ladies on one of our webinars. We record these webinars, these monthly webinars that we host, and you then have the opportunity of either joining the webinar and or watching the video afterwards. And in the last webinar, the lady from Department of Employment and Labor, she spoke about how to get your CI number from the department themselves with the application. And Penny talks you through that as well with the DIY workshops that she's running. We have a channel, and on the channel, there's a lot of public information. You can see it there, youtube.com, safety health training material. You can go onto that and you can go and watch it free of charge. We also upload our orientation sessions of the training material itself, and that's free. You can go and have a look at that. You and your staff can do it. We have we actually have 2 food safety programs and about 4 hours worth of orientation, trainer orientation there. We have an environmental awareness program, which is excellent, designed by somebody who works for the United Nations, and we've got an orientation session on that. our ergonomics program, which is really, really good, was co-developed by one of South Africa's leading ergonomists. And we've got a couple of hours worth of orientation around ergonomics. And by the way, that's another thing that I haven't even mentioned, and I will talk about at the licensee orientation. Ergonomics is a wonderful topic, easy to lecture, compulsory. It says every single employee shall be trained and retrained. That's amazing in the regulations when they do that. Almost like the Department of Employment and Labor are marketing agents. And I take advantage of that. So go to the YouTube channel, have a look at that, and then, of course, we'll give you access to the unlisted stuff as well. Okay, now, lastly, you're going to be in a situation where there are colleagues that have a very similar motive to yours. And you might regard people like that as your competitors. And I honestly believe that in this business model that we've got, it's not that they are competing or that you are competing, but you are completing. If there's something you don't know, but you have an opportunity to run a training program on it, you can then complete that client request with your colleagues. And I mentioned Cape Town to Cairo, literally multiple languages. We cover all 11 languages, South African languages, and there's somebody that will be able to lecture on it in the event of you needing that. The networking opportunities are phenomenal. I've just received now, while my phone is next to me over here, from a professor. We've got a couple of legal advisors that are licensees. We have 2 professors that are licensees. Natalie mentioned some of the clients that we've got, the corporate clients, but we also have a number of universities that use our training material. So please feel free to take advantage of this network as a licensee. Okay, so with that, I think I've pretty much talked it through. I'm just watching my time here. Got 7 minutes to go. I'm going to hand over to Natalie so she can just quickly do a wrap up. Then we're going to stop the recording and we're going to open the microphones for questions. So Natalie, over to you.
Thanks so much. So if you'd like to request a quote, please do. I'll just pop the URL again in the chat box. I did send it earlier. It's the same for the prospectus and the catalog. So we'll just automatically send you an email that's got the prospectus, the agreement, the catalog for you to really take some time to go through carefully. And then you can get in touch and we can schedule a one-on-one call with Ken just to go through any questions or concerns you might have and take it from there. Thanks so much.
Great. Okay, so there we go. It's been great to be able to talk and share with you and hopefully clarify certain things. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them. I'm going to stop the recording in a moment. And then what I'm going to do is just take any questions and we can chat for the next 10, 15 minutes if you like. But at this stage, to those of you that are watching the video, you weren't in the live session, please make contact with Natalie so that she's got your details. And please don't hesitate to ask questions. Also feel free to share the YouTube URL with your employees, with your colleagues, with your employer and brother-in-law and whoever else you'd like to share it with. Now with this, having said that, we do this on a regular basis, and then we have in-between sessions that will specifically look at the topic involved. Our next webinar is going to be on the BFAR, the Basic Emergency First Aid Responder Program, and that'll probably be about 2 hours worth of information, so that if you want to set yourself up so you can become a first aid training provider, you will get a lot of information from the developer of the training program, or the co-developer, and Penny, and myself, and so forth. So with that, I'm going to ask Penny just to do the final wrap-up and the thank yous, and then I'm going to stop the recording.
Thanks, Ken, and thanks everybody for making your time available just to go through the information session with us. We know that you will have more questions, and what we really love is meeting with you one-on-one and doing individual Zooms, and this has been very, very helpful. And I know that Natalie will be following up with you, etc. But please be proactive. Please forgive us if we don't get back to you immediately. So if you do want to hear from us urgently, then definitely make a point of WhatsApping Natalie and making a point of booking a Zoom, because you know, it's with anything in this world, we respond to those that really do knock on the door loudly. But looking forward to assisting you and helping you make a massive success, or just taking your business to the next level, whatever it might be. But looking forward to giving you a lot of support going forward. Thanks, and back to Ken.
Great. So to Penny and to Natalie, thank you for the message there, Natalie. I appreciate that. I'm going to stop the recording and we'll take the questions after that. Thanks very much. Chat to you later.